no, chatos.
Devlog, an action-adventure monster tamer inspired by Dark Souls.
Monster Tamer? Oh no, Nintendo don't like that, bro. Nintendo does not like that.
And Ocarina of Time. To be honest, this devlog will be quite sporadic as there was a lot of random things I worked on as well as a lot of unfinished pieces. But hey, that's just how it is with monthly devlogs. But also last month, I didn't post a devlog as the things I worked on were featured in a trailer I made for Gym Leader Ed's Monster Taming Direct, which I gratefully got selected to be a part of. Trinity64 was featured alongside popular indie monster tamers like
Trinity64,
Aethermancer, Lumentail, and many more. To set out for such a short-term goal and to have met it feels really good, especially since it's something I could have simply missed out on if I just
This looks pretty cool, actually. I like this, actually.
Didn't feel like putting in the effort. But I believed I could create a trailer for the game that conveys the vibe and atmosphere I'm wanting to get across. But visuals aren't enough for a trailer. You also need good music. But I didn't get good music. I got great music from my friend Taro, who created a beautiful original soundtrack for the trailer. Trust me, I know. Now, I'm no
Send their
longer a
cease and
true solo
desist.
dev. I mean, I know I could have made a song if I really wanted to, but he's someone that I trust more than myself when it comes to music. Some other things that got made for the trailer were the models for the Venoming Maw Guardian and the Glade Knight Guardian. Also, with the help of another friend, Pocket Enix, he guided me through what I did right and wrong when converting these designs into low poly. He even went as far as to making my very own personalized tutorial using the Glade Knight model. I can't even tell you how much something like that helps.
Take care, Pharaoh. Be safe.
So do me a favor and go to these guys' channels and leave them a comment like, "Thanks for helping Bilsu." I'll leave links to their channels in the description. Also, make sure you check out the trailer. It's not perfect, but I had a lot of fun putting it together. I would go over how I made it, but to be honest, all I did was get random shots. Like, all of the shots from the trailer were just from the editor, so nothing really special. Luckily, I already have some experience with video editing, so that also helps. Now I can talk about some new stuff. So for the trailer, I created a new location.
Dude, honestly, you want to know something? It really did. It really does. Like, yeah, I understand. Like, he's trying to get the vibe or so of like the Legend of Zelda and everything. But he's not beating the allegation that it's literally he's using an elf character for it. Nintendo's keeping an eye on this one.
Now, this location is meant to be a simple place that shows off a vista of the world. A cliffside.
It looks good though. I'll be honest with you, it does really look good.
With an ominous floating white
but can we play Zelda? We got Zelda at home,
I'll talk about
okay?
a lot of the ways I achieved the look of this area, as I'm honestly pretty happy with it. First, I started off with an extremely bare-bones sketch of the location, like toddler level, because in my head I already kind of had an idea of what I wanted. I then took that sketch and did a photo bash of an even closer version to what it was in my head. Unfortunately for me, I struggle with drawing landscapes. For some reason, modeling them has just been easier for me than drawing. I then got into Engine and started blocking out the location. I kind of had a rough idea of the traversable layout, and since the location wasn't going to have any combat encounters, I could be a little bit more lenient with this area. I used Unreal's modeling tools and specifically the Cube Grid tool, as to be honest, it's kind of like playing Minecraft. So building out a location and having the ability to edit it was pretty neat and fun. After building out the traversable area, I tried to get a sense of scale with how far things would be. I went to the NoClip website and loaded up the second level of Halo Combat Evolved, where you can see the Halo ring far off in the distance. I liked how far it looked and was curious to see how far from the playable area it was, so I could use it as a reference, and yeah, it's extremely far. Like, this level is actually massive, and going all the way out to the ring made it to where you could hardly even see the playable area. I swear. So with that knowledge, I placed my distant objects also extremely far from the playable area as well, and it looked like it was going to work out. I also decided I was going to add a fake sun, which was just an emissive low poly sphere even farther out. I also drew my skybox on my iPad in Procreate. I wanted something ethereal like what I had in the concept art. I covered the level in a massive dome and just made its texture the one I made.
Actually.
Now, this isn't normally how you make a skybox, but it was simple and easy for me to make and gave me the results I was looking for. Another thing is the sky texture is a lot bigger than what it would be on the N64, but that's one of those things that I just let slide to meet the style that I'm trying to achieve. I then took the block out and brought it into Blender and modeled over it and made it look a little bit more organic and cliff-like. I reused some trees that I had made in the past because I felt like they worked well with the textures of the land that I had made. I added a pond to this area because eventually there will be a sort of fishing mechanic in the future, so this will be kind of a fishing spot. I learned about using edge detection and was able to make the water look a little better than I did in the past by having this fake foam around the edges of any objects that intersect the water plane. I even learned how to improve my waterfalls and have them look similar to the ones found in Ocarina of Time 3DS. I did this by creating an opacity mask that blends out the harsh edges of the textures and creates alpha variations throughout it. I also used flow maps to help give the water some additional movement to simulate the waterfall better. It could definitely be improved, but I think it's miles better than what I had in the past. Far off, I created planes of mountains and rotating clouds to add some more context for the distance of things. Then lastly, I made the castle. I went through and modeled a very low poly castle miniature and placed it along with a shattered sphere and had them rotating. I'm probably making this sound simpler than what it was for me, but the main thing was
has
that
material
I already had
to
a
shut
vision
his
for what I
down. Yeah,
wanted it
true.
to look
You
like,
don't want
but
to admit
also
it. You
took a
don't
lot
want to
of
admit that
tweaking.
you're using
With all
Nintendo
that being
stuff, you
said,
know?
this area is still unfinished and probably will be until the game is released. There's a lot of far off points of interest that I want to put to give
Can you
hints
pick
to
up
the
that
player
jar?
of what they will see in the
Oh,
future.
you can break that
And
jar?
obviously I haven't
Nintendo
made those
doesn't like
locations
that.
yet. Also, the castle design is just temporary, mostly because it's a little too generic for what I ultimately would want. I still really like it though. So making this area and putting together the trailer and making the models for Glade Knight and Venoming Maw was what I did for the month of August. Before jumping into what I did in September, did you know that you can wishlist Trinity 64 on Steam? It'd be pretty cool if you did. We just passed
Yo, they're using the number 64, bro. They can't do that. Nintendo's gonna come, bro. Nintendo gonna come after this person. I swear.
2,500 wish lists, so that's nuts. Thank you to everyone who did. For this month, I took one step back and hopefully 2 steps forward. What I mean is that I essentially deleted the player character. See, with this being the game that is teaching me game dev and the player character being the first thing I had been working on, I made a lot of noob mistakes, whether it was with the code or the modeling. The model was kind of rough in a lot of ways. Along with that, I was using stock animations from the Mixamo website, so I had very little control over how my character looked in motion. And I did that because honestly, I wasn't ready to animate. I was hardly ready to even model the character, but I had learned a lot from doing so I don't really regret it. With that being said, this month I decided that I'm ready to remake the model and try my hand at animating. I tried to improve many aspects of the player
I ain't gonna lie though, it really does look like freaking Link.
model, even if it meant adding a little more geometry than the previous version. Adding a lot more definition to parts of the body and trying to make the model look good without the poncho on, which also helps with animating. Along with the model itself, I updated the texture, which I also think has improved a lot for the most part. His triangle count now sits between the N64 Adult Link and the 3DS Adult Link. And to be honest, I think the art style for the game also checks out for that, so that works for me. Because despite me aiming for the N64 look, I'm no expert. So I take arbitrary liberties in what I choose to add more detail to.
I'm worried.
Ultimately, my goal is to have my own flavor of this style, and to do things that the developers might have wanted to do during that era, but were unable to because of the hardware limitations. One of the things I like about the poncho is that since it uses this single texture, it can always be a possibility that I can add new ponchos to the game by simply creating new textures, which I think is pretty neat. For the poncho mesh itself, I just used Unreal's cloth simulation. The main reason for doing this is because animating cloth is a little bit too much for my current skill level, so I'm settling with just simple physics. It still needs some tweaking and stuff, but yeah. Animating was something I was really intimidated by. Even though I animated some of the Guardians already, there was something about animating a human character that just really worried me. It's kind of why I'm a creature designer primarily, but I actually ended up really enjoying it. Whether it was looking at other games for inspirations and breaking them down frame by frame to see what was actually happening during the animation.
You can't use Nintendo stuff, man. You can't say that.
Or making my own key poses in my room using myself, it was really engaging and fun. With that being said though, not all the animations received the same amount of love, and none of them are final. Some animations were super bare bones just so I could focus on the code and the functionality part. But the main point is I can now finally animate what I want and not have to use
Go sub to this channel before it's
Some of them may be worse or better, but either way, having that control and them being handmade by me is
I'll be sharing
so
it
much
with
better.
everybody on
So
YouTube
now let's
anyways.
talk about what I added to the player. Along with
It
the
looks
process
good though,
of
I'll be honest with you.
re-implementing
It looks
things
really
like
good.
taking damage or just locomotion animations, I actually thought about what I wanted my player to have the capability of doing. In fact, it's basically impossible to design proper levels without knowing exactly what the player can do. Like how high can they jump, how fast will they be, are some areas too small or big in comparison to his size, and etc. So because of that, I'm going to be working on all of his functionality for a few months. I want to try and solidify a lot of his abilities before I create real areas. So I started creating a test environment that was primarily focused on testing mechanics and combat encounters first. I don't want to talk too much about this area as it'll be the playtest and eventual demo area, and I'll talk more about that at the end of the video. After animating basic movements like idle, running, rolling, backflipping, side hopping, and jumping, I chose to work on his basic attack. This is a pretty straightforward 3-hit combo. Once attacking, you will strike and have a window during the animation in which you'll be able to continue the combo. Each attack propels you forward a little bit, and I have control over how far and fast each strike will take you, which is why I chose to not use root motion. The beginning of each attack animation is the end of the previous one, besides the first one, which shows the player pulling the sword off their back and swinging. When not attacking, the player will immediately sheath their sword. This is similar to Dante from Devil May Cry. One large reason I chose to do it this way was because I plan to add diegetic UI to the sword in the future. This is UI that appears in the game world, like in Dead Space. So the sword will indicate something specific the player can do. But I'm not entirely ready to talk about that yet, so I'll have to save that for next month.
He's getting DMCA from
combo,
Nintendo.
I added 2 variations of aerial attacks. While attacking in the air while rising, the
It really
player
looks
will
good,
spin
though, I'll
their
be honest
sword
with
and
you.
be propelled even higher. This allows you to not only strike enemies above, but since it adds to your momentum, you can use it to gain even more vertical distance. The second aerial attack is a plunging one. So when attacking while falling, you'll slam your sword down and damaging things until you reach the ground. This attack will loop while you're in the air. So yeah, even if you're falling for eternity. Along with these attacks, I decided to create a stamina system. I know I said originally that I wasn't going to, but I think it's ultimately needed to prevent the player from just spamming their attacks and not thinking. I'm giving the player a lot of tools, and I want them to actually have to think about what to do rather than just button
Remember if you made a
mashing.
fan
But it
games
won't
like
be a
this,
punishing
there
stamina
that
system,
were
or at
good.
least that's my
Game
goal.
devs would hire
Currently,
you on
the
the
only
spot
things that
instead
will
of
use stamina
DMCing
are the
you into
grounded basic
oblivion.
attacks.
Yeah, I
and
remember back in old days, right, when you used to make like fan games and stuff like that, like similar to this, like they would hire you. I don't even know, like you might be right. They might DMCA this person, maybe. Who knows? I would not be surprised, or it will shock me, or in any sort of nature. But we'll see.
quick movements, but not jumping. Along with the basic attacks, I want to create a sort of alternate heavy attack, but I don't want it to simply be an attack that does more damage and is slower. I have an idea, but I think I'll save it for next month for when I actually implement it. Another thing I added to attacks was the ability to clash with the walls and recoil you backwards to help the world feel a little more physical. Don't worry though, because this doesn't
To be honest, this is actually a good alternative to The Legend of Zelda on Nintendo Switch. Like if you wanted your own version of Nintendo, like Legend of Zelda-esque type of game or so, right? You have this, you know, well, as long as Nintendo doesn't know about it, but you know. This is a good alternative compared to like, if you want that like 64 vibe, you know, the graphics and like, it gives you like Majora's Mask vibe and everything like that, you know? Or just the old era of Zelda. This will probably hit the spot for a lot of people.
Interfere with your actual attack. It's a separate thing that just detects the world mesh. A very big thing that I finally added was a shield. Now you're probably wondering, okay, but where's the shield? Well, since the player has their spirit arm, I wanted them to have the ability to conjure the shield from their arm as a sort of power. So when pressing the shield button, you will spawn the spirit shield from your hand and it projects outward. This shield will block 100% of the damage of basic attacks and certain moves from guardians. The caveat is that you only get 3 charges of the shield and then it will break and you'll have to wait for it to recharge. So it essentially has its own stamina system. There's more reasons for that, but once again, I'm not ready to talk about it. Along with shielding, I did the most stereotypical thing by adding a parry. So the first handful of frames during the shielding animation, if you were to be hit by a blockable attack, you'll nullify the damage and enter a parry sequence. While this isn't implemented yet, it will stagger the Guardian or severely damage their spirit bar. If the attack you parry is melee, you'll simply swipe your arm. If it's a ranged attack, you'll deflect the projectile back at them. Outside of helping you in combat, this will be the best way of non-lethally obtaining Guardians, as it doesn't damage them. So for people not wanting to harm the Guardians, you'll technically not have to. There's still a lot of functionality missing though, but I'm working on it next month. One last thing I worked on was the player's ability to ledge grab. Well, actually, not exactly. Ever since I introduced the ability to jump, a lot of people have been telling me that a ledge grab is pretty necessary to prevent those moments of barely missing a jump, since I did say I wanted some level of platforming. It is true that I do want the player to be at least a little more mobile than Breath of the Wild Link. Basically, like, what if you found a middle ground between Mario 64 and Zelda 64? But I also don't want to overcomplicate it. Ledge grabbing is something that if you do a simple version of, there can be a lot of problems. But if you want to make it more complex, it ends up making the game feel like Assassin's Creed, which is also not what I want. So my solution is pretty simple. It's not revolutionary, but it solves the problem, and I'm still working on it, but I basically have traces that detect where a ledge is, aka when there's a wall in front of me, and when there is a top of that wall that is a certain distance above my player. When that is detected, the player will just simply jump again. Or you can think of this as automatic vaulting. I only just started working on this, so there's a lot missing, like animations.
Automatic
and
vaulting?
It'll need more testing, but the point is to create fluid platforming without the need of ledge grabbing functionality.
I don't know if
I just don't ever see a
honest.
reason that the player would need to just hang from a ledge and do nothing. I won't be putting enemies next to a ledge, so yeah. This will also work with short ledges, so in a way you'll be able to hop over surfaces automatically. And you won't have to time a jump, so ideally it should feel seamless. I am curious though of your thoughts on this, and this type of thought process is going to be going on.
I'm not a huge fan of automatic vaulting, because it's from like Minecraft or so where you automatically start jumping and everything. I'd rather control it myself personally.
In my
But that's
head
just my
with
personal
everything.
opinion.
Like, how can I make things flow better and work with the game that I am making? Yes, moments of pause are important, but I can't think of any game where climbing a ladder is fun. Yes, it's realistic and helps you traverse directly vertically.
Look at you look at Nier Automata and Stellar Blade climbing ladders.
But it's often slow and restricts anything else you can do on top of having to be designed around. I'm also making a retro fantasy game. I can think of other ways to accomplish vertical movement if I need to. But yeah, like I said,
grappling
I'm
hook
curious
could
on
be
your
another
thoughts
thing
of
that you
this.
could probably
One of the
use,
reasons
maybe.
why I've been thinking so much about how games handle certain aspects is because I recently played and beat a AA game known as Hell Is Us. The only way I can describe this game is that it is a pseudo Souls-like that has cryptic, Skyrim, Zelda puzzles, and dungeons, and has visuals that remind me of Fallout or Resident Evil. It's a hard game to recommend, but I absolutely love the week I spent playing it. It doesn't hold your hand and has a lot of rich lore and mechanics that are similar to the ones I plan on adding to Trinity. I just wanted to mention it as I was studying things like its combat, puzzles, character controller, and environmental design. I really have to reiterate that
maybe use a
everything
grappling
shown in
hook,
this video is
maybe.
rough around the edges. It's kind of difficult for me to show this kind of stuff knowing that people might see something that looks bad or unfinished, and I don't want people to think I don't see that stuff or don't plan on working on it. It oftentimes could give a bad impression, but it's something I'm willing to risk.
No, but
to
this is
just
how
show the
early,
process.
game
I'm
development.
kind of in the middle of all these mechanics.
Remember,
and
when V shows you gameplay, you leak it to us allegedly. I ain't leaking
when
shit.
it's time to make things look better, I'll be all over it. The visuals and feel are my favorite part, but the more important part right now
You need to keep
is
that
to
on the
make things
download too as
functional.
well.
Also because, like I said towards the beginning of the video, I will be having a playtest, hopefully at the end of October. This playtest will include this gray boxed area and be focused on getting feedback on the player controller and combat with the Guardians. I'll be doing multiple contained and focused playtests throughout the development of Trinity 64, so I can know what works and what doesn't, and can adjust accordingly and early. If you're interested in trying out a playtest build and providing feedback, you can join my Discord and I'll leave a link to it in the description. I really do want this area to be a fully fledged location that is a microcosm of the game, so the majority of the game loop mechanics will be present here, and it'll give people a good idea of what this game will be.
This is not bad
and
though.
if they're
This game
interested.
looks really
I really
nice.
just want people to play
At least for
something,
like its
but it'll
early
probably
like
take a year
development
for me to
stages of
get
this game.
everything in place, but once all the systems are finished, things should speed up quite a bit. Thanks for all your support and watching till the end if you did. I'd like to give a shout out.
Playtest Nintendo ninjas can playtest and then chop you down. True. Man, hold on. Does anyone, by any chance, has anyone commented or so that the Nintendo ninjas are coming for this? Let me see. No, no one's talking about it. Yeah, no one's really talking about it. This is good, actually. It's not bad, actually. It's not a bad game. Trinity 64 is an action-adventure Zelda-like, Souls-like monster tamer inspired by Ocarina of Time, Dark Souls, Elden Ring, and Twilight Princess. This is very interesting. True, true, true. But I at least want to share it to my audiences specifically what they think about it. I think this game should get a little bit more. Should get a little bit more more coverage. I wouldn't say coverage, but like as in like more exposure to us in general. Just don't share it. Just don't share it to the bigger audiences. That's it, man. It is on the Steam. It is on Steam actually. There, let me see. Trinity 64. Oh, let me see. Trinity 64. Oh yeah, it is. Yep, there it is. Trinity 64. I'll add it on my wish list. I'll give it a try. Why not, you know? That is what the Nintendo ninjas would want you to think. They already there. True. They already know, bro. They're looking at you, Bilsu. Bilsu, be careful, Bilsu. They're looking at you. They're watching you very carefully. You can't say Nintendo stuff. You cannot. They're gonna come after you, man. They're building up a case against you, my friend. Be careful. Be careful out there. But hopefully the game comes out very well, so. Or it just comes out at all in general without, you know, the Nintendo legal system come after you, you know. It's been a pretty shitty world at the end of the day with Nintendo, so anyways. Yeah, I think it looks pretty good. I like it actually. It's not too bad actually.